one thing in Vanuatu, there's none of that. Like after the post-earthquake, you have to think. You're in that survival mode. You can't, there's no one there to tell you what to do. There's
Yeah.
no one to tell you, go here, do this, do that. We were just lucky that we had the Australian embassy that came to us and said, because they knew we were there, and we weren't actually that far from where the embassy was. And they just wanted to make sure that they knew that we're okay. They also knew, they're aware that we also knew where they were. We stayed put. There was no need to come to them because they were getting inundated with people anyway. So they were getting heat stroke. But we were fine where they were. Other than that, we had to work it all out ourselves.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, it was amazing. I've often reflected in that situation. I wonder what would happen if that same occurrence happened, like say in the city or in the coastal towns where we were. You would not get the response that we had in Vanuatu. There would be all this panic. There would be, I mean, yes, I know that there's it's very scary, but there's not that panic and that extreme and all those reactive moments. People were in the now.
Yeah.
They had to work out what they needed to do. They
Yeah.
weren't waiting for someone to tell
Yeah.
them,
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a big difference of learning to take responsibility and try and work things out for yourself.
Yeah. And I think that's the difference in, well, people call them not so civilized areas, right? Or not so
Mm.
advanced areas. I feel they have more self-leadership
Yeah.
because they have to survive. And so they will do everything within their means, like, just to put food on the table, right? For the kids, for the
Mm.
family, right? So they don't have the modern amenities like what we have here in the city. Like, for example, in Singapore, everything is just given to you on a silver platter. And so in that sense, people do not have self-leadership. They do not even know how to survive like the most basic things, right? They feel like, oh my God, I'm helpless. And they look towards someone to guide them. But people in so-called third world countries, they do whatever it takes. The survival mode is so strong and
Mm.
they will, and
Yeah.
self-leadership comes in. And that's so important, right? I mean, I feel the more modern we are, becoming as a society, the worse we are in our personal growth, personal development, self-leadership, it's like out of the window. It doesn't
Yeah.
exist, you know.
I
Yeah.
couldn't agree. You're so right. And one thing that reminded me when we were in Vanuatu the day before the earthquake, we just went. We had just a private driver. We just went away around to, some of the locations, and like we're out, and amongst the villages, and we've met quite a few people from from a village, and they've all each got their own responsibility because it's about community,
Mm.
and there's no power there or anything like that. Obviously, close to the city is, but
Yeah.
where we were, there was no power. The sun
Yeah.
is the power.
Yeah.
And if you want something cooked, you make a fire.
Yeah. Yeah.
You cook there. If you want something washed, there's no washing machine, obviously.
Yeah.
You wash by hand.
Yeah.
And, you've got your vegetables, you've got your livestock, all those sorts of things. And it's just bringing things back to like basic,
Mm.
community. There's no, obviously, internet or anything like that there.
Yeah.
But like we relate it to being off grid
Mm.
now, but that's their normal everyday life.
Yeah.
And obviously, people that go and work in the city, that's got a little bit of a different lifestyle, and they're not really focused on they might have a village back home, but they like the city because we spoke to people about that as well, and they really liked that that way of living. But the actual village people, they've got nothing. They're the happiest people. They all come together. So I mean, really, when people get overwhelmed with all society and everything that's been going on, they always generally come back to basics.
Yeah.
And I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
So it's just this simplistic way of living. And
Yeah.
ours, it was survival at the time. But,
Yeah.
we didn't miss all that. All that seems so insignificant.
Yeah. How has your life changed since you got back? Like with this experience that you've had? I mean, obviously life changing. And how has it, you know, has it drastically changed your perspective about the world, yourself, the path forward, anything like that?
Not necessarily. It wasn't like, something falling on my head moment where, it was, life changing, as in like it completely shifted my perception. It just reminded me of all the gratitude that, just stick to yourself. Don't worry about what's going on out there, and don't get caught up in, I don't generally get caught up in that all anyway, but everything is so easy and accessible, and so quick. And if it's there are always ways of making it, like the internet speed. I mean, okay, we used to have dial-up. Okay, we had nothing, and then we had dial-up, and now it's always quick. And if it's not quick, it's always that upsell. Instead of just being grateful for what you can access
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
there's always something more shinier. And I didn't. I'm not so much caught up in all that. It was just coming back to basic needs,
Mm,
of the people. And I don't miss that. Okay, we had no communication for quite some time. My
mm,
major concern was that I've got to let my family know I'm
yeah.
okay. And after that, it might sound bad, and I don't mean it like that. It's just that it was actually really good not to contact anyone or do anything, because the people that we knew, they knew we're okay, and they would get word out. But to
Yeah.
us, that was the main priority.
Yeah.
Anything else above that was just secondary. It was insignificant.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I remember reading about the news, and I kind of knew you were there. I wasn't sure. And then saw that, hey, you're not posting stories anymore. It's like, what's going on? So I was a little bit concerned for, I think, 1.5 days. And then you dropped me a message, and I thought, okay, as long as you're safe. So that
yeah,
was quite, yeah, like when you hear of these things and you like, hey, I know someone who's there. It just makes you feel like, oh my God, I need to pay attention to what's really going on. Yeah.
yeah, it's later on when we were able to get a little bit of, coverage, only just from where we were, there was nowhere else. It was just thanks to the Starlink. The last thing I wanted to be doing was taking and uploading any photos of the area, because it
Oh,
was such a devastation of
yeah.
people. And, um, you know, I find that the Western world has contaminated some of these beautiful countries in their ways and means, because I see those people who are so happy with what they've got. And they must look down on, some of the Westerners,
Yeah.
and thinking, we're self-centered, we're entitled. They've never said anything directly, but I just look at,
Yeah.
I sit back and I just go, oh my God, sometimes I'm embarrassed.
Mm.
Because, you know, the Western, they should be taking note from the people, from the locals or islanders, because just look how happy they are. They've got
Yeah.
nothing, they're not complaining, and they're
Yeah.
just getting on with life.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying all Westerners obviously are like that, but
Yeah.
it's just as an observation.
Yeah.
And so
And
when I was taking some of the photos, I was just really mindful that
yeah.
I just had a lot of respect of other people's loss, and
Yeah.
I wanted to take some for my own record to help explain to, this is some of the news, this is the effect of the country that some people just weren't aware of. It was
Yeah.
not like, oh, look at this crashed wall.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
just like, well, this poor devastation that this country that has to experience. And I was in this group to do with Vanuatu, Facebook group, and because I'm just trying to collect as much information as I could at the time. And someone had put this video up of it just happening, and it was so raw and really
Wow.
moving. And it was actually showed like it was just the quick aftermath, that just happening, and people are just really disoriented. It was in the street somewhere, and this little boy was just crying, for
Mm.
his mum. And like, I'm not going to share that by any means,
Yeah.
but I can connect to that because I know that's exactly what it was like. And people ask, oh, what's it like? Did you put a mattress over your back? Did you stand in a doorway? You've got no time to think about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's stories like that you kind of feel compelled to share, because it shows people exactly what it is like.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to share that because, it's just really just, distressing as well,
Yeah.
for people that may not have been there. I could just relate to it, that
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of loss for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And that's just only on the countries that we do know.
Yeah. That is true. That is true. I think, well, in general, Alina, I mean, you live a life that is, unconventional to begin with, right? So, you're not someone who is completely cut off from reality, right? So you know exactly what's going on, right, in the world. Um, so you find that it's not so much of an impact where it's like complete life changing. It's not like you've been so cut off from reality. But having said that, there must have been some trauma, right? That you experience. I mean, I think trauma, it could be a fear for life, right? Like, oh my God, what's happening? I don't know what's happening right now. Like in the other podcast with Michael, you talked about that. Um, Now that you're back, right? Do you think that the experience that you've had, the trauma, how has that kind of shifted you maybe in as a human being, and do you see, or do you find that you value life on a much different level?
Interesting question. I haven't yet, I haven't come to that stage. I haven't hit that, because I was just dealing with the now, and I don't kind of think about it later. My first instinct was like, we're okay. People needed help. I wanted to help,
Yeah,
and but they wouldn't allow us to help because we just weren't experienced.
yeah,
And we were guests
fair
where we
enough.
were staying, and they had people like staff there to try and help. But I was like, I don't care who you are, who I am. It's all hands on deck. We need to help. We need to come together as a community. And I was prepared. I was wanting to do that, but I wasn't allowed to because of yeah, just to do with safety and things like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I did find out that if you've got a bright yellow, like, one of those fluoro vests, jackets, you're a person of importance. Because they were like volunteers, so they had their own strategies, in place
Yeah,
down the track. But as far as the trauma, I think it was just more. It was so unexpected. It was just like I explained in Michael's podcast. It's kind of like as if you're going doing your own thing, all of a sudden this bomb just
yeah,
explodes,
yeah,
in the street that you're in, and you're just going about your everyday thing because you got no preparation, no
yeah,
nothing. It's just instant. What
yeah,
you say you might do, of like, oh, if I was in an earthquake, this is what I would do. You got no idea what you're going to
yeah,
do. You've never been
yeah.
in that situation beforehand,
Exactly.
like,
Yeah,
and so unprepared.
yeah,
Like all these things that happen in split second, like the pool that I was only swimming in 10 minutes ago, all of a sudden I took a glimpse, and the tip of the water was at the height of the sliding glass windows, because you just go, oh my God. And you're trying to take all this in around
yeah.
you. I never thought I was going to die. I never even thought about it happened so quick. You don't think about that.
Mm,
I don't know if the earth was going to, like, I was going to fall in a hole. I don't know. It was just, you were just reacting to a situation at that
mm.
time.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I think everyone, would react differently. I don't know. That was just my reaction.
Yeah,
Was just
yeah,
I couldn't move. It was like being on a really unbalanced, surface, and you're just trying to ride the wave
yeah,
while
yeah.
you're seeing all this destruction happen around you, trying to take it in really quickly.
Yeah. So it's almost like you're really being in the moment and you observe everything
Yeah,
that is happening. And that's why, like however long it was felt longer.
yeah.
I feel like when we are in the moment, when we are seeing everything, it always feels longer,
Oh, yeah,
you
it
know.
does,
So,
definitely. And I think the message that kept coming back to me was like, well, looking back now, it's like back to basics all the time.
mm,
Just keep
yeah,
things, just keep things simple, back to basics, and
yeah,
not to get, distracted with all the noise out there, and,
yeah,
stay true to yourself, and don't be scared, because, this is who you are. And
yeah,
um, once upon a time, I think I explained, yesterday when on Michael's podcast, when I was talking about how I had to run.
Yeah.
And I'm in my trail shoes with my toe socks, underneath in a really nice, when I say it was nice, it's a tiger lily dress, but it's like a summer dress because it was nice and cool. My hair's still pinned back and I've got this bobby pin there because there was no point really doing it. And I'm running. I couldn't have felt more feral and bogan than what I did. And once upon a time, I would have worried about that. I
Mm.
didn't care. I've
Yeah.
always replied, if you don't like it, don't look at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that comes with a little bit of maturity and a little bit of age as well.
Yeah.
And no one's there to judge. It's only yourself that judges that. But
Yeah.
everything was really in the moment. And I think that's
Mm.
where the message was just
Yeah.
being in the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to talk about, what you said about back to basics, right? I
Mm.
think that seems to be a theme that a lot of people are awakening to as well. A lot of people say, back to basics, what is really important in our lives is not about chasing this or chasing that. And I think many people struggle with going back to the basics. I think even in the podcast where we spoke to Josephine, when she talked about, her plan is ultimately moving into retirement is also back to basics. And so this is a recurring theme, right? Back to basics. And, what you shared earlier on about, people having nothing as in the material things, but they may have a lot because of their connection to family, to self-leadership, to land, to, Mother Earth, and appreciating everything that life has. That's actually a lot of wealth in a different way, right?
Absolutely.
Not in a way that we understand. So as far as I know of you, you're not someone who is like chasing these goals, like, how we see many people on social media do.
Yeah.
You are quite, back to basic kind of person. Has that shifted even more where you feel like, okay, I can do without this, and I'm just gonna focus on, this main thing going on in my life?
I think it's for the moment it's just more believing in yourself.
Mm,
Yeah, don't not doubt yourself, and just trusting the right people will come into your lives at the right time. I mean, obviously they did. We made connections in Vanuatu. We'd never have thought possible from around the world.
yeah.
It was the right people that just happened to come in at the right time. But just on a day to day, like I'm still processing, that part. But it's just a reminder of it's okay just to be, who you are. Not that I was worried about that before anyway,
Yeah.
but when they say, keep back, to basics and keep things simple. I've even got clients now that are having babies who they don't allow the phones. Like they've got a 5-year-old and they've got another one on the way. Now the 5-year-old, they don't have anything, and she's a psychologist.
Yeah.
And it's all about keeping things simple.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
thought, is this the start of the cycle? When they go, everything
Yeah.
comes in cycles, everything does a full circle.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if that's an insight of what's to come. I really hope it is, because we can't keep continuing what we're doing.
Yeah.
Because where does it stop? It's like when I first started, in the fitness industry, and I first started, there was a family fun run. I just started the gym and I just had the two babies. And there was where I went to the gym, YMCA, they had a family fun run event. And so we entered, it was 5Ks. And we had the kids, the side-by-side pram. One was a newborn, I think one was two or thereabouts. Anyway, and it was the pram that if you didn't lock the wheels out when it was going forward, it would shake. So we had to lock the wheel so we could just go straight ahead, right? We were the first family across the line, so we won, right? And we're like, yay! Anyway, that was kind of the start of something. And then over a period of time, I made connections with friends, and you do a lot of people, you do a lot of things with when people that you meet who lift you up are doing the same things, and you get caught along with the ride. And I wouldn't have done half of the stuff today if I'd not had all my
Mm.
friends that I've made along the way, to do with. And it's all about, the experience and the journey. And so that led into like a 5K. And I wonder if I can do my 10K. And I wonder if I can do a half. And I wonder if I can do an ultra. I wonder if I could do, it just keeps going and going because when I first started to get into triathlons, like I've only done a couple really small ones, and then I started to train for a half Ironman, and that's when my marriage broke down, like all that time, and like to me that was the least important thing. But I remember thinking, at what point do you stop? So I know that I'd accomplished that, but then what? Now we're going to do a full. I don't really want to do a full, but is that the next thing that I want? It's not ideal, but I don't know, like, and I thought it's got to be a point where you need to just keep things where they are,
Mm,
just enjoy, because
yeah,
you just keep wanting and wanting and striving and not being content with where you are. So
yeah,
I pulled it back and I went, no, this is what I like to do, and
yeah,
I just enjoy what I do.
yeah.
I think,
I think, yeah, being in touch with, I mean, there's often a drive in the human spirit, right? To want to be better, to want to improve ourselves. But we
yeah,
also need to listen to the part of us that tells us, okay, maybe this is it, you know, this is where we stop. And I think that connection with that inner compass, that inner sense of where is that boundary is so important, or else we just keep going and not knowing when to stop.
yeah,
And so, you listen to that, right? Obviously. And yeah, I think that's important. That's something
definitely.
people need to learn.
And that's, we can tile that back into coming back to basics.
Yeah.
We keep wanting more, we keep doing more. There's so much, debt,
Yeah.
that people are living off on credit cards and for whatever reason. I'm talking about the average spending like over
Yeah.
Christmas.
Yeah.
At Christmas time for us, we just keep things simple. We don't have extravagant gifts or anything like that. It dilutes the whole meaning of
Mm,
what it's about, and it
yeah.
becomes, oh God, I can't. And now Christmas is over. Thank God for that. And it's like, it doesn't matter. Like, you shouldn't have to be under that amount of pressure financially, that
Yeah.
is, to
Yeah.
do that, because it's not about extravagant gifts,
Yeah.
and it's just reeling everything's back to being, simple, and gratitude,
Yeah.
as well. Yeah, you just have to remind yourself what it's about and coming back to basics. And I think people are starting to get, relief from that pressure and expectation of having to keep performing or, keep accruing debt.
Yeah. They can't. And I think what is even more interesting is people will start justifying why it's good to have debts. I hear that quite a lot. I mean, in the business world, right? I mean, I mean, certain decisions that people make for businesses is you make the debt work for you, which is fine. But when it becomes personal, where they start to accumulate a lot of debt and not knowing how to manage it, I think that would be an issue. But if you can manage it and you make it work for you, then fine. But how many people actually know how to make it work to their
Yeah,
advantage?
yeah,
And also, I mean, we know the banking systems, right? I mean, it's created, for a particular reason and for it to be done in a certain way. And so back to basics. I like this. I feel like this is a theme for many people in 2025. Back to the humanness, right? The
yeah,
human within us, being in touch with ourselves, our inner essence, our feelings, our emotions, what is most important, and not to chase things and not to do things that just because the whole world is doing it doesn't mean that it is right for you and that you should be doing it as well. I see that you are back to work. You just, started training with your clients again. And how does that feel? Coming back into this civilization and starting work again.
Well, okay. So on top of all that, I'm going through my menopause peak thing at the moment. So because I've come away from everything, so I've got a little bit of insomnia of a night. I'm finding out again, and but this is all just stuff that's all resurfacing. So I am aware of that. But I'm finding that because I've had that, it wasn't really a break, it wasn't a holiday, but it was just a slight break. I've got more energy that I can give to other people. And at the end of the day, people are just like yourself, and but sometimes they get so highly strung with their environment, with what's going on around them. You're dealing with their attitude's not a good word, but you're dealing
Mm.
with their reactions rather
Yeah,
than the person, I
yeah,
suppose.
yeah,
And, there's a human being under all that,
yeah.
and I always connect, I connect with all my clients, but I try and sort of push all that aside and connect with them. And I'm able to do that if I'm feeling, relaxed and energized myself. So I have practices in place that I try and maintain so I can keep that going. If I'm too tired, I don't obviously have that same connection. But I found that this week, it was great because I'm just dealing with all human beings, which is what I normally do. And then as I've been so busy this week, and there's been a few people that have just come into my life just for one-off certain training sessions, and I'm still able to give them. But now I know I'm coming to the end of the week and my energy stores are getting a little bit depleted
Mm.
again. And I know that I've just got to be forced and stick to the boundary because I know
Yeah,
I can't give what I don't have.
yeah,
And, just going back to everyone, with the clients, and everyone is just so happy just to be, feeling really good, getting into a routine. They've all had a wonderful holiday. And I don't know how, I do not have one bad client or one client that takes more energy away. I love them equally. I feel so grateful to have all these people in my life that I can help and make a difference. But at the same time, I know I still have to look after myself.
yeah.
And, I've been pressed quite a few times, to, step over that boundary. Oh, but can you just see me on this day? I'm going, no, I can't. That's my admin day. And
Yeah.
it's everyone has a weekend. I don't.
Mhm. Yeah,
But I've only got a small few hours of that's my time, and I've really got to stick to that.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's a real big highlight because, yeah, you're just as important as everybody else.
Stick to the schedule, right? What you have planned out for yourself. I think
Yeah,
that, yeah, that is really the key for self-care, especially for, people like us doing this kind of work.
yeah,
Because,
yeah,
I think often people think that, well, you are in control of your time. Why can't you just change it a little bit, right? To
yeah.
accommodate,
I know, I
um,
know.
which is again normal for people to feel that way. There is a sense of entitlement that if you want my business, right, I'm paying you for it, then you should be able to shift your time. But when we lay, the ground rules, the boundaries, like this is where you do not cross, right? Then we are educating them.
Yeah,
We are,
definitely.
we're also helping them on how to draw boundaries. They
Mm.
learn,
Yes,
learn.
yeah.
Yeah.
We're also showing, our clients that by leading by example, we're walking our talk.
So what does your 2025 look like? I mean, do you have in mind, like what is it that you want to do more of or do less of? What is the
Yes,
year ahead like?
it was going to be better than 2024. um, the cancer side, like that's kind of shown me like a lot of last year was all to do with, my partner's cancer, and, like it was just so many spur of the moment things. And, and I've got a second job, trying to maintain everything at once and trying to keep level headed about it. Like, I think I did a really good job because there was a lot of uncertainties that were thrown in all that. And what I'd like to do this year, I mean, I've always remained positive about the whole thing anyway, but what I'm trying to do is focus more on what my goal is and what I want to do this year rather than trying to just fit in what I can when
Mm,
I can, just to keep the ball rolling. But I'm trying to shift the focus now into something that I want to do this year, like fitness wise, that is, and really work towards it because I know that's what makes me feel strong when
yeah,
I've accomplished something that. I've got a couple of things in mind, and something, and if it doesn't scare you, it's not big enough.
yeah,
And I just want to make sure that, obviously if things happen and I need to change, well, then I need to change. But I'm sort of more just cautious of what's around me, because obviously that will have a big, impact on whether or not I can do things or not, to the effect. And like if I'm training for a big long endurance run, obviously if I'm really tired and I've had a lot of interruptions, I'm not going to be able to do what I need to do. So I need to
Yeah.
be flexible with that. But yeah, I want to really get back into my workouts and the training at the level that I used to do before, because
Mm.
that's what made me feel strong.
Okay, okay. So
Yeah.
do you have any plans to join any races just to pace yourself in your own training?
Well, there's always a big race that I like doing. It's an endurance one. It's later on in the year.
Okay.
And that scares the hell out of me. I've done it twice before.
What's the
But
distance? Is that a
um,
full marathon?
no, well, the distance is 50 Ks, but it's in the mountains.
Oh, wow.
So you've got to qualify to get there, which I mean, just because I've been there twice before, so that will stand alone. It's just so they're not picking up the scragglers. It's not anyone can just do it
Yeah.
because it's very exposed and,
It's tough.
dangerous. Tough. The last time took me 9 hours 20. So
Wow.
you've got a cut-off of 13 hours because it's very hilly and lots of steps. You've got a cut-off of 13 hours. So the first time I did it, I was in that third group. So there was the first, second, and third group. And I'd finished in, I don't know, 10 hours something. But, I stopped and I take photos. And I mean, I'm not going to sit there. It's a beautiful place. Of course we smile. I don't run the
Yeah.
whole way. There's a lot of walking. And then so I knew because of what I did before that time that, I should be able to go into the second group. And that was my goal, because the cutoff time for that was 9.5 hours. And
Mm,
mind you, the elites do it in about 5 or 6. Like it's
yeah.
just some phenomenal,
Yeah.
time. But hey, not everyone's that category. Most people around.
Yeah.
There's a lot more people faster than me. But it's all about what you're doing for yourself.
Yeah.
That scares the bejesus out of me, because when you're down in the bottom of a valley and you're looking up to these huge big cliffs, it's more mental strength than anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I would like to I was looking at doing something like that, because
Okay.
just mentally,
Yeah. I mean, this was more than 10 years ago. I trained for marathon runs and
yeah.
I used to do the half. I used to do the full. Oh, no, I did a lot of halves. And the only time I did the full was at the halfway mark. I had really bad cramps and I could hardly walk. And then I could not run at all. My legs were stiff. And you know what? I walked for the rest of the 21 kilometers, like quick, like brisk walk. And I still made it 5.5 hours. And I was like, okay, not too bad.
Oh, it's really good, Shamala.
Yeah. So that was more than 10 years ago. I did it and I thought, okay, I'm never going to do the full again. So then I've been just doing half marathons.
That's great.
Yeah, but I've stopped for a long time now. And, I've been thinking that no, maybe I want to do something, like a long distance run or something, but to get back into that, I think it's kind of tough, because I've lost it. I mean, I haven't been running for a long time. I've just been walking. So to hear you say 50 kilometers in the mountains,
Because it
wow.
scared the hell out of me. That's why.
Wow. Swimming in my mind. Whether I'll do it or not, I'm not sure.
That's good, because I think that's what I'm lacking. Because running in itself, I can't particularly say I enjoy it. I'd rather walk, through the trails. I've taken a lot more. Running's hard work,
Yeah.
but it's the journey and what you gain and achieve along those ways. There's so many times when you feel like giving up, and
Yeah.
that you don't, and then that propels you forward, and it's that mental growth, that I
Mm.
love. And so with your half marathon, if it's around about, say, May, for instance, I would be looking at doing just small segments, like, what to do, like chunk it down. So you'll start to just focus on, 5 Ks, but put the steps in place. And it's
Yeah.
like looking at, a big steep hill and then being totally intimidated by, oh my God, I'm at the bottom. How am I going to get to the top? It's right. Okay, cap down. I'm just going to go one foot in front of the other, because each
Yeah.
foot is connected, each step is connected, and then you do the right way, and then you'll get there.
Yeah.
Ideally, now I should for me to do what I need to do, I should have a good 10K base to start with before I start training. I don't really have that, but I know I've got to do something. You feel like you're not motivating, you're not feeling it, you're not, you're great at showing people what to do. And I keep the fitness, but, it's not like there's a big difference.
Yeah.
You know that feeling.
Yeah. There has to be this inner thing, right, that pushes you. Yeah. And because you are the coach, but who coaches you? So then you have to coach yourself to hit that goal, right? And if you don't, then there's, I know exactly what you mean. There has to be this energy where you feel like, this motivation that keeps you, I mean, whether it is fitness or mental health or anything, I feel they're all connected, right? It's not, they're never separate. It's always, connected. So it's, like you say, it's a mental endurance. Right? How much, to focus and get there and pushing the body there.
And I know, coming down to your why, like what Michael touched on that yesterday, and your why is always big and, really important. That's what I talk about, in transformations.
Yeah.
We all want to lose weight. One want to do why? What made you? What was your snapping point? And then when you start to peel back and you go, oh my God, this is really deep. And if your why is not strong enough, then, the chances of you meeting that goal, that little bit of a voice to push you when you don't feel like it, that can be a make or break sometimes. And the times when you don't feel like training, just remember the person, like in my situation, you don't know who's going to be on stage for the competition. So in all the times that you don't feel like training, just remind yourself that the person that you're up against is. And I said, okay.
That's a good one.
So I would think of all the people that I might not feel like going out for a run, but then I think about all the people I say on that particular day that are doing the event. I think of them, okay, they're out running.
Yeah. That's a good one to keep us going, and we can apply it to any situation in life, right? Whether I want to be a better person, whether I want to grow spiritually or become much more enlightened emotionally. Like if I don't feel like doing the work, know that that's someone else out there doing it.
I think also too, when you were talking about transformation, like a transformative year, and all of last year was like finalizing all some of those, those loose ends and things coming to an end, starting the new year afresh. One of the things my partner disclosed to me towards the end of last year was he had a dream that he was going to die. And that scared the bejesus out of him, obviously. So he could not wait to get to the end. And it's like, okay, now that can be, interpreted as many things. But in everything that, like, I've listened to what you've been talking about, this new year coming in, it couldn't have been a better fit, because I sort of see things as just things that you don't need, will just start to fall off, and you start to declutter, and you only start to bring in with the things that you need, and coming back to basics.
Yeah.
It's all kind of, interlinked. Always, I love the energy of a new year, because there's new possibilities. It's all this new energy that comes in, the unknown, and also trying to set benchmarks that aren't too high as well, so that you feel like you can achieve, rather than feeling like you've failed again. With the earthquakes, it was it was all getting rid of stuff that you don't need. It's all bringing back to what's important.
Truly. Thank you for sharing. Shall we sign off?
Yes, we will. It's so good to be back. Definitely. So it was lovely catching up.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is Shamala from Singapore signing out.
And this is Alina from Queensland, Australia.
Bye-bye, everyone.
See you.